Coming up next, immediate reaction to Islam Makhachev beating Thiago Moises at UFC Fight Night. What is going on, everybody? I'm Brad. That's Chris. Welcome to the 11th Island. Islam Makhachev versus Thiago Moises just ended. Makhachev winning by 4th-round submission. So, Chris, right away, what's the takeaways from this fight?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is seeing Islam in 5 rounds, right? And seeing like something, it's a new challenge for him. He's working himself into it. And this is a guy that promises, there's a lot of promise to him. I mean, he's connected a lot of connections to Khabib, and he's been very dominant throughout his short career. And I think to see him really gassed, really tired, talking to Paul Felder after that fight, you could hear the breaths, and it wasn't a thing like, wow, this guy is he doesn't have good endurance. He doesn't have because he was more gassed than I've seen, notably without taking much damage, just tired. And but what that told me was, okay, this is a guy that just pushed himself to the limit, and it could have gone more, but he pushed himself to his limits, and he now knows what that's like, can now know how to prepare for it. And in that 4th round, coming into those late rounds where he never lost steam, he just built it. And in a fight where you're really just wearing the guy down, which was what we just saw, I think it's very exciting to see him in 5 rounds.
Yeah, this is a big opportunity for him, and this was kind of a Makhachev showcase. I mean, he came into this minus 700 favorite. No disrespect to Moises, but it was kind of expected. It was Makhachev going to win in impressive fashion? As it kept going on, well, like I said to you before the fight started, I said worst case scenario for us here is he wins with 23.5 minutes of control time that's uneventful. And it was starting to kind of look like that until it was a pretty slick submission finish, especially when it started off with almost a huge slam that looks like Moises kind of stopped at last minute. And it was one of those ones where Makhachev, nobody in the division wants to fight him, but if he doesn't get these big finishes and kind of these big things that get the fans behind him, nobody's going to push for him to get these big fights. So when you don't have anybody that wants to fight you and the fans it's not that they don't want to see you, but they're not going to push for you. Nobody wants to see somebody that's just going to grapple it out. So when you get kind of an exciting submission finish like this, I would have obviously we'd like to see him get it earlier, but I mean, Moises is tough out, right? So it's something like these. It's helpful for the fans to go, I want to see him get this next fight. So when he calls out somebody like RDA, that's something that maybe becomes interesting down the line, and the fans might start really pushing. And I think Khabib being in this corner is really going to help his marketability, because his style really is kind of reminiscent of an early in his career Khabib. And you're looking at the same type of trajectory here. And I mean, we saw what Khabib did and how dominant he was in the division. Do you think he can go on a Khabib-type run now?
Well, I definitely think that the grappling is developing along that trajectory. And I think one of the impressive things that I saw from Islam tonight was that he, as Paul Felder noted, he can play on the feet a little bit. I mean, the legs were working. He was getting some good strikes in. And I think one of the best things about Khabib is that for all we talked about his work on the ground, he could trade with the best strikers in the division. He
knock
could
down Conor McGregor.
Yeah, he could knock down Conor McGregor. He could stand his own. Not really how he's going to finish fights, but he can roll with what's going, because once you get to that top level, I don't care how good of a grappler you are. I mean, there's guys that have developed takedown defense that are going to keep you at bay. And you just have to find those opportunities. I mean, Islam was pretty good at getting the takedown in this fight. But what happens in the next one where you're facing someone that has been around more, has seen some of these moves, and also is a guy that's set. I mean, Moises is pretty good on the ground himself. So it's one of those things where he's almost trying to play that game. I'm going to roll the dice because, I mean, that's my strength too, versus a guy that's a pure striker that knows how to counter good grapplers.
And when you're somebody as good at grappling as that too, you got to remember too, if you can your striking doesn't have to be as good as those strikers because you have
Hmm.
the threat of the takedown. And when
Yes.
I say, like I mentioned, Khabib knocking down Connor, that was because Connor's so terrified of the takedown that
Yes.
he drops the hands and he opens up front. So
Hmm.
Makhachev doesn't need to be an elite level striker. He just
No.
needs to be at a high level competent.
But yeah, and the reality is all fights start in their feet, right? So you
Hmm.
just have to, and you get to a point where, a guy might play you by saying, I'm going to win a points game and I'm just
Yeah.
going to dance and get my strike. I know I can get my strikes in where I can if I play it safe, and
Yeah.
that's what Islam is going to start running into now when he starts facing some high level. I mean, he's faced some big guys, but this is now once you call out RDA and we start moving up. I mean, it's a
Hmm.
very packed division here that Islam is breaking into now, and I think to see him be able to show off a few more tools tonight is a huge factor for me.
And you talk about the RDA call up. Before the fight, we were talking about if Makhachev wins, who do we want to see him face next? And RDA was a name that I think both of us threw around. We both kind of liked it. And so I like the call out because it's a reasonable call out and it's something that should be attainable. It's a reasonable step up.
Hmm.
For RDA, it kind of makes sense for where he's at in the division now. We're up a bit of him. There's a bit of a logjam. So I think that's the fight that most makes sense to me.
Hmm.
There's like hookers out there, like you had mentioned, but I think RDA makes the most sense in my opinion. And it's something he made the call out. They've kind of had a little bit of a history. Just it makes the most sense. It's a fight night main event
Hmm.
again too.
Yeah.
I think you just roll with that.
No, I think this is good, and I mean, also nice for the UFC to be able to after rolling out the big shiny object in the lightweight division, which is Poirier Connor, to be able to roll out another solid lightweight fight that really marks the future now as we move
Mhm.
forward. And I think RDA, that's a good fight. I think the call out where he said 2 weeks, not like we'll do it this time. I'll give you 3 months. I think that was a
Mhm.
good line. I think that sets out a time. Anytime you can do a call out and also set a reasonable time, like a timetable that's current enough that the fans are going to be keep you in
Yeah.
mind. If you're a guy like Islam and you're trying to build your star, and you have a nice submission there, big audience. Khabib is there with you. Everyone's thinking about you. Now all of a sudden Monday comes around, the news cycle picks up, goes into next week's fight, and we're not really thinking about Islam anymore. But now, we have a timetable. Whether or not RDA accepts this fight for the next little bit until he doesn't, we have a time in our mind when we're going to see
Yeah.
Islam again. We're planning for that now. And I think that was a really good call out in
Mhm.
terms of just trying to suck some eyes on you in a lightweight division that's just constantly flashing everywhere.
I agree. And for Moises, he's still going to be ranked after this fight. He's number 14. I can't see him falling out of the rankings. I'd like to see just somebody like a Hanato Mocano, pardon me. I think he's somebody who deserves a fight in the rankings. He was formerly ranked at featherweight. He's kind of working his way back up at lightweight. And kind of a shot for Moicano to jump into the rankings and for Moises to kind of get his feet back under him
Hmm.
before he starts coming up. So I'd like to see something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a clear way to go. I think Moises can either
Hmm.
find a little bit of a tune-up here, or I
Hmm.
mean, he could bring someone else into the rankings. I think he's a big enough name that he can do that.
Hmm.
So I think that's the smart move here. I think frankly, in terms of a promotion standpoint, everything that needed to happen tonight for Dana White happened. Tonight.
Yep. You got anything else to say?
One last thing. I don't know how much time we have left, but so cut me off. But it's nice to see Khabib out
Hmm.
and living his best retirement life. I mean, you can see his father in him now, and
Yep.
it makes more and more sense the more we see Khabib why he went out when he did, and it was really great to see.
Yeah, it is really nice to see. It's nice to see him putting on a little bit of weight where you're not seeing the guy kill himself with the weight cuts. It's nice to
Hmm.
see a healthy and happy Khabib, which
And
is it's great to see.
And his biggest fan was in attendance tonight, which was nice.
Yes. Yeah. And so for people watching this, please like and subscribe. Make sure to keep following the channel. We do these immediate reactions on a weekly basis now. So you can go back last week, check our Poirier McGregor immediate reaction. Stay tuned for next week for the Dillashaw Sandhagen immediate reaction. And we bring in other content too, like CFL interviews and coming up with some CFL content soon. So like and subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll see you later.
Have a great night.